Philip, let's just give us a take, your opinion and your take on this deal now going through, this Walmart deal going through here in South Africa.
Well, I've had the opportunity to look at the conclusions of the case, and I think I've always said that Walmart should stop popping the champagne corks too prematurely. The appeal has been partially upheld. What does the decision say? And there's a number of points that I'd like to get across. First of all, the people that were dismissed in the run-up to the merger announcement must get their jobs back. The appeal upheld the claims that the trade union made that there will be no retrenchments for a period of 2 years. It upheld the decision and stiffens the decision that the recognized union, SACAWU, must have its collective bargaining arrangements in place for at least a period of 3 years. But what's new about the decision is that the court has asked for a new study to be made on the employment consequences and on the local supply chain, i.e., how can this takeover help local suppliers and help local employment? Now, I think that the judge felt compelled to do this because Walmart were insufficiently forthcoming during the legal process. This stiffens the earlier decision, and it means that this movie is still running. We now have to appoint an expert panel. That expert panel will report back to the court. So it gives us a fresh opportunity to look once again at that key dimension of this whole deal is how can we help local suppliers and local employment with the world's #1 employer, whose global supply chain is headquartered in Beijing.
Let's talk a little bit about that local supply chain because, again, this is not the first time that the issue of local suppliers, what's going to happen to them, has been brought up when it comes to this deal. So my question is, how does a deal get this far ahead in terms of going ahead or not going ahead and us still talking about what's going to happen to the local supply chain and more research? Was there not enough research done prior to this?
Look, the rigor of the competition tribunal's initial process was insufficient. There were sufficient warnings and evidence given to the Competition Commission about supply chain impacts of Walmart around the world. They are significant and they do impact the local real economy. The competition process in other countries is much more rigorous in terms of having oversight and looking at the consequences. So I hope what this does in many respects is mark a new benchmark in competition thinking in South Africa. And it is clear that the Competition Commission appeal are still not convinced that the undertakings given by Walmart. Their evidence was considered to be not substantial, sometimes evasive, and it was only at the last minute that Walmart came up with this idea to have a 100 million rand fund available to help local suppliers. What the Competition Appeal Tribunal has done is to stiffen those conditions. This is not over. It is now for Walmart to really open the books, to be more transparent, and to make a real commitment to South Africa that it wants to invest in local suppliers, grow local employment, and to ensure that Africa has a stronger presence in the global supply chain of Walmart.
Philip,
Let's see this as an opportunity. This is an opportunity for Walmart and Massmart. This is not a penalty. It's an opportunity for them to make this case and to work with the unions and suppliers to make sure that that happens.
Philip, I want to talk a little bit about the consumer because one of the arguments was that the South African consumer would truly benefit from Walmart coming into the South African market, and also just looking at, well, you're talking about employment, but also looking at a huge number of South Africans who are on the low end of income, and a lot of them are very poor. And when I was speaking to two commentators today, they were saying that they were quite happy with this development and that they were looking forward to Walmart coming into South Africa, because what this means for the poor people is that they will be able to save much more and that their rand is going to be able to last them much longer having a player like Walmart in the country.
Oh, I think it is clear that the Walmart strategy will be to be very competitive price-wise, to put enormous pressure on local competitors. That means that they can use the might of a $400 billion company, which has 2 million staff around the world, to be very aggressive and competitive in terms of pricing, even if it doesn't, even if that puts pressure on their own rate of return and profitability locally. There's going to be an Arctic wind blowing through the retail sector, coming from the Walmart end of things, to put pressure on suppliers and on competitors. And therefore and they can afford to do it because they're the world's number one and they got a global supply chain based in Beijing. What we're trying to say is, look, we welcome lower prices for consumers, but look what's happening with the Cambridge stores. They are sprouting up in travel hubs around the country, and the reports that I'm getting is that is putting pressure on local companies, on local family businesses, and the people employed in those stores are all on labor broker terms and conditions of employment.
Philip, I want to talk about
lower
that a little bit.
Always have a consequence, and the consumer should look beyond the price of the product and look at the broader consequences.
Philip, let's talk a little bit about the employment side, because labor brokering a really big issue here in South Africa. We see our unions are bringing it up. It's a huge thing right here in South Africa. Talk to us a little bit about other countries that have strong union policies like South Africa, and how Walmart has fared in those countries, particularly looking at employment.
In the United States of America, Walmart does not have a single collective bargaining agreement. Every time that a union in that country, which is after all the home base of the company, every time a union makes an attempt to get organized, the people are dismissed or departments are closed. They are the union buster, number one in the union busting hit parade in the United States of America. All the studies confirm that when Walmart comes to town, there is this direct impact on local competition and on local stores, and they tend to get wiped out, frankly. And then the process starts with local suppliers, and we call it the Walmart squeeze. There's the Walmart squeeze on price with local competition, and the Walmart squeeze on local suppliers, who get squeezed and squeezed until they have difficulties to supply the goods at a reasonable cost for their own business.
Philip,
around the world, what we have done around the world is to build local unions and to ensure that they have collective bargaining rights with Walmart. We've done this around the world, and that is the advantage that we have in South Africa, is that there is a union, and we now have an appeal tribunal which says that the union must be recognized. That gives us a chance to ensure that we can get decent work and collective bargaining. The labor broking model is not going to be the answer to Jacob Zuma's plans to create 5 million jobs in the next decade. This will not bring decent work. It will not bring fair wages and prices and certainty to the South African worker. Labor brokers, it's a short-term project. The workers don't know with any certainty where their next rand is coming from. They're exploited. It is not going to help economic growth in the country. And I'm really amazed that Walmart would make this error in using labor brokers in the Cambridge stores.
Philip, we're running out of time, and I want to ask you really quickly. I've also come across a lot of research, like you're saying, that does show that when Walmart goes into most of the places that it does operate in, you do see local industry suffering. With that in mind, how is it possible that Walmart continues to move into particularly emerging markets where you do see huge amounts of people? When you're talking about unemployment issues, how does Walmart then still be able to make their case, and a country like South Africa still able to say, well, we're welcoming Walmart?
We're asking for a new approach. We're asking them to open a new page in the way that Walmart does business. Africa has huge growth potential. And in fact, the fact that the world's largest services company is prepared to invest in Africa is a good thing. We see the message that it sends. At the moment, Africa only has 2% of world trade and attracts very little foreign direct investment. I think in the next 2 decades, this is all going to change. We have 1 billion people in Africa. You have half the population of the country of the continent is under 30 years of age. There is huge potential. So therefore, what Walmart and Massmart should be doing in this study is to invest locally in terms of knowledge, in terms of skills, and to develop a local supplier base which will give the business certainty and give them new markets to exploit. And instead of relying on bringing in 2 new super tankers a week through either Durban or Cape Town from China. The local, the presence of Walmart in the States and in other markets is reaching saturation point. For them to grow, they have to have a global dimension to their development. South Africa is part of that strategy, and also India. You know, we're going to be in India next week, as we were recently talking to the Indian government about the Walmart price.
Philip,
These companies are going
have
global,
to leave it there, Philip.
And if they're going global, they have to help locals.
Thank you so much, Philip. We have to leave it there. Very interesting discussion. Would love to talk more, but we've run out of time. That was Philip Jennings, General Secretary at UNI Global Union.